One out of 54 children are diagnosed with autism every year. Welcome to another episode of K.i.D Tip Tuesday from K.i.D Clothes Tv. The month of April is Autism Awareness Month. If you're a mom of an infant or toddler, K.i.D Tip Tuesday will discuss the signs and symptoms that you need to look for. How was Autism Awareness Month created? Well, it started in the 70s, where it started out with National Children's Autistics Week, which eventually evolved to Autism Awareness Month, where they spread awareness and acceptance of this developmental disability. Autism is a developmental disability where it interferes with social communications, interaction, and language. One out of 54 children are diagnosed with autism every year. So, what are the symptoms of autism? Well, here are the common symptoms of autism. No eye contact. The child will not look into your eyes or look into anybody else's eyes, will not acknowledge that somebody else is there. No gestures, no pointing, no waving. There is no sense of pretend play. They just do the same thing over and over again. Repetition is very common with many autistic children. They line up toys in order. They spin. They walk on their tippy toes. They seem to not be able to manage their emotions very well. They don't know how to calm themselves down. Instead, instead of and go into a full meltdown where parents or the caregiver cannot control them. Delayed language. By 12 months to a year, if you notice that the child is not speaking, you need to discuss this with your pediatrician. Of course, there are many children who do speak and say words, but after a year or so, they lose all their language and they reverse backwards. They also, just like they have delayed language, they might have delayed movement where they are delayed in milestones like crawling, sitting up, walking. All of this you need to discuss with your pediatrician, especially if you see that your baby is missing certain milestones. So this is the time where I enter into a story time. My son is was diagnosed with autism when he was 2 years old. He had many of the symptoms that I just mentioned. He had no eye contact. He'd look at us, but he wouldn't acknowledge anybody else around him. He would walk on his tippy toes. He was very emotional. He would play with buttons. He was fascinated with turning on and off the TV. That was like a big fascination for him. He had delayed speech. He did have certain words, but then he just stopped talking completely. So this worried me. They referred me to, I live in New York City, so they referred me to early intervention. And there they did evaluations, and it was discovered that he had autism. At the time when you do get the diagnosis, it does seem like it's the end of the world. You expect your child to grow up, be normal, healthy. So this is like the last thing that you expect. But it happened to me. And it was a great big change in our family. We had to deal with a lot of therapists coming into our house, ABA, OT, speech. We had therapists in our house almost 40 hours a week, Monday through Friday. But you know what? It was all worth it. Eventually, he got better. It's not the end of the world. There are therapies, especially if you start early. I'm grateful for early intervention. Early intervention helped so much, I believe, with my son. Even though my son still has issues, if you saw the evaluation that they originally made on him when he was 2 years old, they weren't expecting him to read. They weren't expecting him to write. He was diagnosed with very low ability. So we wasn't even expecting much. But with homeschooling, that's a whole other story how he ended up being homeschooled. Now he's reading. He can write short sentences. He can do things that I didn't expect him to do. Slowly but surely, he's getting there at his own pace. But not every child is the same. You have to work with what God gave you. Basically, I am grateful for every little thing that he does. And I know that he's a special being. I created K.i.D Clothes with an acronym of knowledge, information, and direction to educate, inform, engage parents so that they don't miss milestones like I did. I created a children's clothing line called K.i.D Clothes, which was created because of him. K.i.D Clothes is an online children's clothing line that I created, which acronym is knowledge, information, and direction. We want to empower parents with baby care information so that they don't miss certain milestones. They don't miss doing certain things that might hurt the baby. For instance, we have a SIDS shirt where we remind parents to lay their babies on their back so they can reduce the risk of SIDS. Also, we have a special shirt where we remind parents to make sure that there's nothing in the crib when you lay the baby on the crib to help reduce the risk of SIDS. We have breastfeeding shirts. We have shirts that help parents stop a baby from crying. All of this is to help the parents and remind the parents to do certain things to make the transition of parenthood just a little bit easier, and also to dress your baby. If you want more information about our launch, which is going to start soon, please make sure that you follow our social media, and which is the link below, our social Facebook VIP group, and also our Instagram. Look out for our launch real soon.